Hello to you, news, war, spirituality, this time joining us from Brahma Kumaris, all the way Melbourne, Australia, after more than 30 years of servicing in Asia, Hong Kong, Cambodia. Joining us, Maureen Shen. Hello to you, Maureen.
Yes, hello to you.
First of all, thank you for finding the time to join us to this unique show. When you heard about the news that are coming from this zone of war here between Israel and Gaza after October 7th war, your initial response?
Of course, sadness. I mean, it's so sad. The human condition is so sad.
Sad, and the call to action that you felt was?
Well, as a meditator, this is how we respond to send love and good wishes to everyone affected. Of course, I've also got many Israeli friends, some Palestinian friends, so, you know, so much care for each one.
Israelis friends, Palestinian friends, Hamas friends?
Not really. I mean, I don't know any. Yeah, I've never come across any. And we actually had a gathering in the cathedral in Melbourne organized by a bishop. And there was a big gathering of people that came together to pray and to share good wishes in Melbourne City. So I traveled there for that.
All the way from Melbourne to Tel Aviv and to variety of conflict zone in the world regarding the spiritual angle, now Contento Now TV. Thank you for all of you that are joining us here worldwide. We are here based in Tel Aviv, hosting Maureen Shen from Brahma Kumaris, one of the largest spiritual universities in the world, led by women. Hello to you again, Maureen.
Yes, hello. Here we are again. Yes.
Yes, let's see together one testimonial that we got from many that we are going to be seeing here in the show.
התנאים שם ממש קשים, אין הרבה אוכל, יש רעב.
לא היה אוכל, פיתה וחצי. היה להם את הבוס שלהם שמגיע ומביא אוכל. פעם ביומיים, היה מביא כאילו חבילת פיתות. מה שתאכלו תאכלו בשלושה ימים האלה. הוא היה כאילו הראשי שמתעלל בנו פסיכולוגית.
היו הרבה פעמים שהם היו אומרים לנו שלביבי לא אכפת ממנו ושכחו אותנו. זה גם הייתה התחושה שם.
כל הזמן אומרים, לא רוצים אתכם, משפחות לא רוצות שתחזרו, הן לא פועלות ולא עושות שום דבר, אתם הולכים להישאר פה לפחות שנה.
היה לי הרבה מחשבות של האם אני אצא פה, אם אני אחזור למשפחה שלי, אולי יהרגו אותי.
Is there any spiritual understanding to this kind of atrocity?
Well, I think I can only understand this in terms of hurt people. And the fact that there is so much hurt going on in the world, it shows that it's being perpetuated, so it's a very hard thing to accept and it's a very hard thing to practice. And I don't know that I could really practice it. Spiritually, I believe in something, but practicing it is something else. Like I had a woman whose niece was brutally raped and murdered. And she was a woman just like me, same age, same background. She said, if I could have, I would have killed them at that time. And that was a bit of a shock to me because I couldn't imagine someone like me hurting another person. But when we are hurt, that's the kind of emotion that emerges. And then what happened is she turned into spirituality. She learned, and because she needed it for her peace of mind. And then she forgave those people. And all her relatives were so angry with her that she forgave them. They were so angry.
When she said, and this is the exact precise second, that the brick is needed in between, because forgiveness and loving and feeling peace of mind, they are great values. But in the story that you shared, how can you bridge in between these two? She wanted to kill him basically as self-defense.
Well, I don't think, no, it wasn't the girl that wanted to kill them. It was the auntie. When she heard about it, it wasn't so much self-defense. They had already been reprimanded. They were in custody. But if she could have, the emotion she had was to kill. And it shocked her because she's not a violent woman, but that was the emotion that emerged, the kind of injustice of what they did. And I think this is what comes up. We feel there's an injustice and I have to put right what's been wrong. And that can lead to aggression and anger and hatred.
When you heard her, what did you feel about it?
Well, I just self-reflected and I thought, I couldn't imagine myself ever having that feeling of wanting to kill, of wanting to hurt. But it is in all of us. You know, that's what I kind of paid attention to. I have to be careful of myself because I haven't encountered something like that. If I do, then what am I going to do about it? And so that's why I do a spiritual practice. Like even when I was in Hong Kong, it wasn't very long after the Cultural Revolution in China. And even when I was in Cambodia, I would speak to people. It was pretty much a situation of, if you don't kill this person, I will kill you. And so I have always asked myself, what would I do in that situation if a gun was held towards me? If you don't kill this person, I will kill you. I hope I will have the courage to take the bullet, you know. But when I asked people in Cambodia, so if someone held a gun at you and said, kill this person, I'll kill you, all of them said, I would kill the other person. The first ones I asked were monks. And I said, you've taken a vow not to kill. And they said, but otherwise they'll kill me. So it's like practicing values, living values supersedes justice, I would say.
And what would you personally would have chosen if someone would have violent any kind of act towards you, Maureen?
Yeah, well, I practice a meditation. I try to imagine that kind of scene and facing it, because in, you know, the practice that I have, we talk about these 8 powers, and one of them is the power to face. So I want to always uphold my values, no matter what. I don't know if I will at that moment. Who knows? I hope I will. But I imagine these things so that if they happen, I hope I can step into my values and hold my values and not give in. Because I believe that, you know, we have a continuum of our life, and this is just a moment, and it creates the next moment. And I want my next moment to be honorable. So let me do what is honorable to myself. They're my values. Everyone has different values, but I want to uphold my values no matter what.
Therefore, we'll have to listen to Lenora Bergil. Lenora Bergil was announced as the most beautiful and prettiest woman in the world, and at the same time, it was only a short time after she was raped. Now, she went to Washington, D.C., she went to the United States, and she spoke
how convenient it was at that time for these organizations to use my name, my fame, to invite me to their conferences, to take a photo with the woman who became for them a symbol. And how ashamed, so ashamed I feel that I was nothing but an extra in their production. Why? Because today, in these conferences, they don't want to present the blood stains on the pants, the broken pelvises, the discredited bodies of my sisters, the bloodthirsty Hamas terrorists, even documenting their war crimes. And still, most of women organizations are silent. The horrific testimonies we have witnessed so far should have awoken women organizations long ago, and get them to stand up with us in solidarity. But so far, this has not happened because of their cowardice, because of petty politics. The women who were raped and murdered on October 7th will maybe be silent forever, but justice will be done. Truth shall prevail. We will never forget them. And we will make sure that the world will never forget them. We will be the voice that was taken away from them. Thank you very much.
Maureen, you're seeing that, listening to that, and thinking that?
It is happening everywhere. It's happening probably in my neighborhood. You know, there is so much violence against women, so much. It's, you know, I mean, I forget the statistics, but I know even in Australia, it is so horribly excessive. So it is going on all around us. And all I can say is hurt people hurt people. If we keep hurting people, people will keep hurting people. I'm not saying that people are not doing the right thing. Of course they're not. They're doing horrendous things. But revenge is probably not the way we're going to bring an end to this. Because if I'm acting outside my values, I will suffer. I will face the consequences of that. Even what we could call karmically, I will suffer the consequences of that. So that's why I say what I wish to do and what I pledge to myself to do is to uphold my values. And there are many examples of people who have been able to forgive beyond what we can even imagine, that have lost their children, and choose not to hate. Choice.
We'll talk about it in a few minutes, about the forgiveness, about managing the feeling of revenge. But you're talking about keeping to the values. What Linora Bergil is emphasizing, that Me Too, it do not implies to what's happened in this area of conflict between Israel, we're 1.5 hours from Gaza, from our studios here in Tel Aviv, 2 hours from the missiles that are landing in Lebanon, even throughout the last hours in Israel. So what we're asking is why so many organizations of women are keeping silent.
Probably fear. Wouldn't you imagine? Because there's a revenge towards anyone who speaks out. So we need a lot of courage to speak out for others, and we need strategy. You know, it doesn't always, like, a very good saying that I came across, it was from Jonathan Larson's musical called Rent. And in that, it said, the opposite to war is not peace, it's creativity. And to be able to address injustice, we need a really incredible level of creativity. And just to give you a few examples of that, they're not so related to this situation, but real life examples. A friend of mine was doing construction business in Thailand, and the what do you call them? They're dacoits, triads, the people, they were destroying equipment and doing things to hurt. And so this person, he arranged a meeting with them and listened to them. And he said, okay, instead of giving you a bribe, which is what they're asking for, can I build a clinic in your name? Then in the second phase, we'll build a school and we'll put it in your community's name. Because those people who were attacking, they said, it's all right for you, you're getting rich, but we're getting poorer. What are you going to do about us? What are you going to do for us? So they kind of didn't have, in a way, they didn't have much of an option but to do something to try and get some justice. And I'm not saying what they did was right, but if people don't have power, they can't live without power. And the people that have been deprived of power have committed the most atrocities in the world. Because you take away power from people, it's just like we can't live without love. We can't live without power. Power is not an evil thing. It's something to be distributed and shared for the well-being of everyone. So where people have been suppressed and had no power in their life, they've often acted very violently. I read a book called Power and Innocence, and I thought innocence was going to be kind of the good guy, but it wasn't. There's a lot of pseudo-innocence, which is not innocence, where we allow suppression or we have no choice. We're innocent because we are pushed into that situation. But sooner or later, those people break out. So all I'm saying is we don't really have a choice but to apply spiritual principles and holistic thinking.
Don't you think that this approach, under the eyes and the perspective of people that are fighting here, as we've seen, for their life, waiting for their families, is like putting Hamas ISIS out of the hook and telling, hey, it's not really their responsibility of the atrocities because Israel didn't give them any kind of hope. Yet she tried to give them. She withdrew from Gaza Strip many years ago.
Yeah, I really am not an expert on the situation in Israel and in Palestine. I'm not an expert in that, so I can't say this one did that and this one did this. But what I'm talking about is moving forward. If we revenge, if we give violence in return to violence, there is never an end. We've seen that. I mean, I don't believe in wars because they don't work. Of course, it's a very difficult situation, like if someone's invading my country, but that's why I think we need creativity, because we can't do anything else. We can't sit there and just take it, and we don't want to be violent, so we need a lot of creativity. And that's not an easy thing, but if we practice it all the time in our life, we can enhance that ability. And that was just one example of someone being more creative, not paying the bribes, but using a creative response that's a win-win. And the only way forward is win-win. If I conquer a country in war, they're just going to come back and try and get the revenge on me sooner or later. If I suppress people, they will break out and give the return of that. So if we're not in a win-win, we're going to keep having this kind of situation.
You've said that you're not an expert of the politics and the history of the Middle East, but Hong Kong, you've been there for around 22 years. And you've mentioned the riots that happened there after China came back. So let's see a glimpse of what happened there. What can be done there?
Yeah, it's really very difficult. They are so small in comparison to China. I really wonder what they can do by protesting, because we know that it hasn't been successful. And, you know, the bravery of those people to really stand up against such a huge regime. However, you know, what happens also in these protests is it gets mixed up with all kinds of things. People come in, people get set up, because from what I understand, the people were not violent. But then, you know, who knows who brings violent people in, and it gives a bad name to the protest so that they can justify retaliating. If it's completely non-violent, they couldn't retaliate. But the people who were violent, we don't know who they were. You know, I'm talking about the Hong Kong protesters. They were not necessarily the ones that were violent, but then human beings are human beings. So amongst them, there will also be some that want to be violent. So have protests really worked? It's worth just doing a good study on these things and seeing what does really work, because they didn't work in Hong Kong.
While you were living there, could you imagine that this peaceful Hong Kong, when it came back under the government of China, these very, very violent riots will happen in between the two sides?
But as I said, I don't think the Hong Kong people in general were violent in any way. I mean, maybe they were, but I don't think so. That's not the general nature of the people there. But amongst the protesters, there would be some people that use this opportunity to, or are mentally unstable, or the regime could set up a few violent people to make it appear to be violent so that they can retaliate. So what we see in any kind of protest is not always what is behind the protesters. Because I wasn't there at this time, but I was there in, you know, earlier when there was the Tiananmen Square, and there was 1 million people very, very peacefully, you know, walking through the typhoon, walking through the rain. And, you know, I can see the dedication, the peace, you know, what happened there. And in Hong Kong, luckily, fortunately, there wasn't too many incidents. But of course, you know, when there's a crowd like that, you can't control every person's motivation.
Yet you can trust that the people want to keep their freedom, their identity, their initial needs of having the opportunity to feel whatever they feel and to be equal. You've mentioned Tiananmen. What is the most meaningful moment that you remember from those times?
It was actually the protest. Our center was just across the road from Victoria Park, where the gatherings used to take place, and seeing people walk in the rain and, you know, really just come together in one spirit. And because the people were so shocked after Tiananmen Square, that was the other thing, walking the streets and talking to people. The teachers couldn't teach, the students couldn't study. There was a numbness. People were just emotionally numb because of what had happened. And so this was a very peaceful response to that.
You know, we're mentioning people that are fighting information, the post-truth era that some of the stories are being told. Let's perhaps see together one of the very, very challenging testimonials that appear by the son of the leader of the Hamas.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. Such a heavy responsibility over my shoulders. Many people think that I'm the savior. Many people think that I'm an angel, and many think that I'm the devil. And I don't know who to believe. I'm just a very simple individual, and I have a story. I have been in a big fight against many forces that tried to steal my freedom. And I had to fight so hard for my freedom. I went against the flow of my own society, which many considered me as a traitor. And I don't blame them. They have a reason. Because I went against the interest of the tribe. And I thought that the higher interest of humanity was and still more important. If we have to choose between the interest of the group, the family, or the higher interest of the collective consciousness, I think the individuals must choose the higher interest of humanity. So this is basically my case, and I'm not here to defend myself or to build my case. I'm here to communicate with you within the best of my ability of the true nature of Hamas, because we have a problem.
Would you also recommend, as the son of the Hamas leader who wrote books, who's lecturing there in the United States, to overcome the interest of the tribes towards mankind perspective?
Yes, I would. And Karen Armstrong has been a very good leader in this way with the Charter for Compassion. And she says that even if it's against your religion, you know, according to what people are telling you, you cannot use violence. The Charter of Compassion is calling people to be non-violent, to be compassionate. And compassion doesn't mean just to kind of have mercy and care for others. It is to put yourself in another person's shoes. It's to connect with another person and not lose that connection. And one of the things that the second greatest interest I have, besides my study of Raj Yoga meditation, is non-violent communication by Marshall Rosenberg. And I train people in non-violent communication. And the key to that is to understand the needs of the other person. And again, quite creatively, see how they can be met in the most appropriate way, the healthiest way.
Now let's implement what you're offering in the spiritual way in times of war. When it is happening in time of war, give me please another example of the first step. Of the first step that enables us not to try to answer with guns, but answer in another way, and yet self-defense.
Yeah, of course, self-defense is important. We can't just let it keep happening. But at the same time, we have to make every effort possible to use our meditation, to use our good wishes, to use our connection with the higher power and our language. You know, we need language to be able to communicate. And of course, it's going to be very, very difficult with a group such as Hamas because, you know, it's like when people are filled with hatred, they often cannot see, they cannot hear. So I'm not saying this is in any way easy, but if we start building up these skills in our life, like I know a woman who was under, you know, from this nonviolent communication. I have so many stories of people being attacked. And when they're creative and they're able to connect with the person attacking, they could bring that person into their humanity, you know, into their humanity. So, like, for example, one woman, there was a person who broke into her room at 3 o'clock in the morning and with bad intentions. And she just, you know, of course, she had done the nonviolent communication training. So she thought, how can I connect with this person? What can I say to this person? She started off by just saying, what time is it? I mean, such an ordinary question. And this person actually looked at their watch. You know, a person with this intent looked at their watch and said the time. And that gave her a little time to think, what's she going to say next? She said, how did you get in? Did I leave a window open? See, by this time, she was starting to have some communication and humanize that person, because when you're in communication and you're not seeing the other person as a monster, as a evil person, then when she felt that the communication was flowing, she said, you know, I want you to leave. And the person said, I've got nowhere to go. So she said, well, you can stay in the room downstairs. You'll find bedding. I want you to be gone in the morning. I won't call the police. That person did exactly that. And this was not a superpower woman. It was connecting to the humanity of that person. And when I tell that story, people always come back to me with their story of how they have connected. Another woman, a man came into her apartment in Japan and he had a knife. And she just said, what are you doing? And he said, I need money. And she said, what would your mother say? And she got talking with him and he left. So people behind it all are actually human. And that's what we need to do. I'm not saying, you know, if somebody's throwing a bomb at me, that I always have that opportunity. But let me at least start to do this on the smaller scale. And I will practice and be ready for when something big happens. And hopefully I can, you know, get some traction. I mean, maybe not. But as I said, if I don't, then I hope I can think of myself as a soul and accept my destiny, because I have no choice. But let me not kill well, if it's self-defense, sometimes that's also, you know, also necessary. It's, you know, if somebody's coming at you and you can defend yourself, you know, it's a natural, you know. But if somebody says to me, if you don't kill the other person, I'm going to kill you, that's not self-defense. that other person is not the one attacking me. So, there's differences.
But yet, it's a huge point. I think that builds the bridge. On one hand, obviously, spiritual values, trying to communicate, to create positive communication, to see the inner person even when he comes to you. Yet, self-defense, to prevent violence that is coming towards you, that is aiming to kill you, according to what you're sharing, is understandable. It's always needed in order to prevent someone from kidnapping you, from killing you.
But that's the person committing the crime. And, with all due respect, there have been a lot of people who are not supporters of Hamas who have suffered, correct or not? So it's very complicated, I know, and I tell you, I'm not an expert, so forgive me, but we have to try to minimize and protect, the people that are not part of that. So that's where we have a big responsibility. Because with all due respect, there is suffering on both sides from what I understand. And innocent people on both sides, including children, are suffering.
So what you're saying, Maureen, if I understand you correctly, you're saying, according to the spiritual moral values, self-defense for the bad guys that directly are aiming you is understandable. Killing innocent people? Never. But when someone comes to you, self-defense is part of the tools that should be acceptable here in the Middle East, in Asia, elsewhere, when there is a conflict that is not solvable with words to begin with.
Well, yeah. I mean, even if I have a martial art and someone's attacking me, I'll try not to hurt them, but hurt can happen because I defend myself, and martial arts are a very good tool, by the way, because what you learn in martial arts, because I've lived in Asia, I've also studied a little bit, but what you learn in martial arts is if you ever have to fight, you're already second category of professional, because you create such a consciousness that they don't dare. So the mind is trained. I mean, in some practices, you can't even start learning until you can sit without moving while a whole incense stick burns down for about 1 hour. Then only the teacher will teach you, because you have to have self-control. You have to have mind power. And I have been in a situation where about 10 people were following us in Indonesia, and the person I was with was trained in Kung Fu, 10 people, and we were just 2. And the person I was with just turned around, looked at them, and they took off. So this is the kind of mind power that we can also learn to protect ourselves. And the confidence, there's an inner confidence that don't mess with me. So these are spiritual tools that may help us in some situations. I'm not saying all.
Please take me back to this eye look that you were seeing. How exactly did you feel throughout that second? Because it seems to be a short second, but a very, very powerful one.
Yeah, I was amazed. I was amazed, and I was living with someone who was another martial arts practitioner. And the same thing, she said she was looking like she was going to be attacked. And she had it all worked out, how she would defend herself, who she would kick, who she would trap. And she had it all worked out. But she put out this vibration, don't even think about it. And they didn't do anything. And many, many stories I have of that, where, even people in a shop, some people come in, they look like they're going to cause trouble, maybe rob, and they just put this vibration that says, don't even think about it. And I myself got away, only a small example of mine, but in a certain country, you can't get anything imported without paying a bribe, and I don't pay bribes. So when I went there, I just went there with this consciousness, don't even think about asking me. And I got 5, 6 boxes from that place without paying a bribe. And no one I know has ever got something without paying a bribe. So that was my little victory. I'm saying it's a small victory compared to what you're facing, but I just know that it can work.
You also had this don't mess with me look.
Yeah. Because we learn, like there's in India, they have these goddesses. Some of them are goddess of contentment, of coolness. There's another one called Kali, and it's such a firm look, like no. So we need to be able to create the consciousness we need when we need it. Don't be loving when somebody has a different intention, and be able to discern what's going on, because spirituality also helps us to intuit the intention of another person. Sometimes people can trap us, can deceive us, but if we are attuned, that will not happen. So, there are tools that we can develop on a very personal level that will save us.
So perhaps towards the end of this wonderful meeting, you will lead a short meditation emphasizing this self-defense tool for the people that are fighting. We saw Hong Kong, we saw Israel, we saw the son of the Hamas, for people that are in the midst of conflict.
Yes. So first of all, the easiest way to generate the inner power is to just first watch the breath, because that helps me to turn my thoughts within. Taking my thoughts away from all that's happening outside and going in and getting in touch with the inner me, the soul, consciousness, life force. Within the soul is everything I need: peace, love, and power. I could create whatever state of mind is needed at any moment and hold that consciousness. And just as when concentration can burn through paper, through a magnifier, when I magnify my consciousness, when I create and sustain one thought, a powerful thought, this can be my defense, my safety, and my protection. When I create a powerful thought, I also create an aura of light. And there have been experiences when people do not see the body. They see the light. This is the protection of the soul. And in this state, I can access the divine. And that power can be added. Hold that consciousness, that awareness of the power of the self and the divine combined. Keep your light on as you walk the streets. It's a protective aura that gives out light, strength. I hold my consciousness. I am a powerful being. Om. I am the life force, the energy. Shanti, peace.
Om Shanti, and perhaps also Shalom Shanti.
Shalom, shalom. Yeah, beautiful word.
Yes. Also reflects peace, and also have the Om movement.
Shalom, yes, right.
Maureen Shen, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, what dream would you like to accomplish more in your life?
I want to be a being that everyone feels comfortable with, safe, not judged, accepted. And I want to have that power that my thoughts, my words, and my actions can support what another soul needs. And I practice this with my favorite saying, angels don't worry about anyone. They believe in them. I practice this. If someone's going through something, I really make the effort not to worry about them, but I believe in them, because my worries won't empower them. My belief in them will empower them.
Maureen Shen, so many years in Asia, right now near Melbourne, Australia. I want to thank you very, very much, and to invite you to come to Israel, to visit here, and to come to our studios in person. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I hope one day. Actually, our good friend Sharona has mentioned it a few times. One day it will happen.
And this is a great opportunity to thank the good friend Sharona Stillerman, the head of Brahma Kumaris in Israel, that enabled this meeting to become as part of the team. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you. And good wishes to all of the listeners, whether it's today or in the future, because I've shared these with others, and yeah, it's wonderful that you're doing a spiritual reflection on how to face war and pain.
Thank you, and also thank you for being with us on this episode of News, War, and Spirituality and Hope at Contento Now TV.